When Bella Ramsey was announced as Ellie, it wasn't just another casting, it was the beginning of a civil war. At first glance, she seemed like a solid pick. She had proven herself in Game of Thrones, brought intensity to every role, and had the kind of acting chops that could carry a heavy story. But the moment her name dropped, social media ignited like wildfire. The hashtag #NotMyEllie trended within hours. Fans didn't just disagree, they were furious. Side-by-side comparisons with the video game version of Ellie flooded timelines. Some fans slammed her appearance, others said her voice didn't match, and a vocal segment argued that Bella simply didn't feel like Ellie. And while showrunners defended their decision, insisting Bella was exactly what the role needed, the fanbase wasn't buying it. Longtime supporters of the franchise felt ignored, steamrolled by a studio that chose boldness over authenticity. The damage was instant, and it only got worse. By the time Season 2 hit screens, fans were already walking on eggshells. The story was supposed to take place 5 years after the events of Season 1. Ellie had matured, hardened by loss, and was meant to be on the cusp of adulthood. But on screen, that evolution was nowhere to be found. Bella Ramsey still looked exactly the same. Her voice, her expressions, her energy, it all felt stuck in time. Fans weren't just annoyed, they felt betrayed. The illusion of time passing had been completely shattered. Instead of a wiser, older Ellie, viewers got a carbon copy of her younger self, just in a slightly darker setting. But it wasn't just how she looked, it was how she acted. Gone was the fierce, calculated Ellie of the game's sequel. Instead, fans got a version of the character who openly called herself stupid on screen, something that felt completely at odds with Ellie's arc. It was jarring and it hit hard. The emotional connection fans had built over years was beginning to crack, and under all of that disappointment, one name kept coming up: Bella Ramsey. But if fans thought the portrayal was the worst part, they hadn't seen what was happening off-screen. If the fanbase was hoping Bella Ramsey would ease their concerns off-screen, what they got instead was gasoline on an open flame. In interviews, Bella didn't shy away from the controversy, but she didn't handle it the way fans wanted either. When asked about the backlash, she didn't defend the story or offer insight into her portrayal. She joked, she brushed it off, she rolled with sarcasm. Some fans laughed, most didn't. To a growing number of viewers, Bella didn't just seem detached, she came across as dismissive. Her responses weren't just tone-deaf, they felt like slaps in the face to fans who had invested years into this world, and it didn't stop at interviews. On social media, her posts often added fuel to the fire. Cryptic tweets, passive-aggressive comments, and the occasional clapback created a perception that she didn't care about the legacy she was stepping into. It didn't matter whether she meant harm or not. Perception became reality. And for fans who were already skeptical, Bella's public persona became a lightning rod for their frustration. She wasn't just playing Ellie anymore, she had become the face of everything they thought was wrong with The Last of Us. But the real storm? That was brewing behind the scenes. Publicly, HBO kept a calm face. They praised Bella's performance. They talked about bold storytelling and creative risks. But behind closed doors, the tone was very different. Production insiders began whispering about growing doubts. Executives, once confident in their casting, were suddenly glued to YouTube breakdowns, Twitter threads, and Reddit outrage. Fan petitions demanding Bella be recast gained traction. Hashtags trended, engagement dropped, and most importantly, the numbers weren't looking good. The first season had been a smash hit. Ratings, reviews, cultural impact, it was all there. But now, viewership was softening. Online engagement was dipping. HBO had to face the uncomfortable truth. The Bella Ramsey backlash wasn't going away. It was metastasizing. High-level meetings began asking impossible questions. Should Ellie be recast? Was the franchise already damaged beyond repair? Could The Last of Us survive this storm, or was it already too late? Instead of taking bold action, HBO took the quiet route. They went silent. No statements, no updates, no explanations. But that silence? It spoke volumes. And then, the biggest rumor of all dropped. The whispers started as nothing. A tweet here, a leak there. But soon, they were everywhere. The Last of Us. Part 3 had been shelved. Not canceled, not denied, just gone. Fans noticed it first. No trailers, no casting announcements, no set leaks. Neil Druckmann, usually cryptic but playful, stopped teasing the future altogether. The momentum that once powered the franchise was gone, replaced by a deafening silence. Then came the leaks. Industry insiders began reporting that HBO had frozen development on The Last of Us Part 3. No script progress, no internal greenlights, no movement. The franchise that once dominated the cultural conversation was now reduced to hushed whispers in executive boardrooms. And the reason? According to every source brave enough to speak, Bella Ramsey. Or more specifically, the fallout that followed her casting. HBO wasn't just reconsidering Ellie, they were reconsidering the entire franchise. The backlash had reached a boiling point, and the silence wasn't a coincidence. It was a pause, a full stop, a signal that the studio was scrambling to figure out what to do next. But as one version of Ellie faced the fire, another began to rise from the ashes. As rumors of cancellation swirled, fans began reviving an old fantasy, a version of The Last of Us where Bella Ramsey had never been cast. And one name kept coming up again and again, Caitlin Dever. To many, she was the Ellie that got away. The resemblance to the video game character? Uncanny. The acting range? Proven. The fan support? Massive. Word began to spread that Caitlin had always been a top contender for the role. But due to scheduling issues or behind-the-scenes decisions, she was passed over in favor of Bella. Now, with the future of the franchise hanging by a thread, fans and insiders alike were suggesting that HBO might hit the reset button. Not just recast Ellie, reboot the entire thing. No Bella, no baggage. Just a clean slate. And leading that reboot? Possibly Caitlin Dever. Whether any of it is true remains to be seen. But in Hollywood, where smoke swirls this thick, there's usually fire somewhere underneath. And if HBO's silence continues, that speculation won't fade, it'll grow louder until it becomes impossible to ignore. What was meant to be Bella Ramsey's breakout role is now shadowed by relentless controversy, and the effects are bleeding far beyond The Last of Us. Hollywood insiders say the backlash didn't just tarnish the show's image, it started to follow Bella everywhere she goes. Projects she was rumored to be attached to have quietly fallen apart. Casting directors, once eager to bank on her rising star power, are now reportedly hesitant. Studios are wary of the digital firestorm that seems to trail her name. It's not about talent, no one questions her acting ability. It's about brand safety, public perception, market reaction. And right now, Bella Ramsey's name triggers heated debate, not excitement. Her team is in full damage control mode. More curated interviews, carefully worded statements, strategically timed social media posts. But the internet doesn't forget, and neither do the fans. Even her most loyal supporters are starting to acknowledge the toll this has taken on her career. For someone so young, so early in her trajectory, it's a brutal reality. She stepped into one of the most iconic roles in modern pop culture, only to become its most polarizing figure. Whether fair or not, the backlash has become part of her story. And in an industry obsessed with image, that story may be more damaging than anyone expected. But if Bella's future is uncertain, the franchise she helped lead might be in even deeper trouble. The question no one wanted to ask is now echoing across the internet. Is The Last of Us already dead? What started as a celebration of narrative brilliance has crumbled into silence, speculation, and scorched earth. The once thriving fandom is fractured beyond repair. Longtime supporters have abandoned the franchise. New fans are confused by the tension. And HBO? They've gone dark. No updates, no announcements, not even a denial. For some, this silence is proof that the studio is quietly walking away, hoping to avoid a messy public collapse. For others, it's the calm before a complete reboot. Maybe with Caitlin Dever, maybe without Neil Druckmann, maybe without any connection to what came before. But one thing's for sure, the original magic is gone. The emotional pull, the cultural relevance, the deep connection between players, viewers, and characters, it's all been buried under controversy and creative chaos. And yet, some fans are still clinging to hope. They believe the franchise can be salvaged, that the right casting, the right direction, and the right story could resurrect The Last of Us. But even they admit it won't be easy. Too much trust has been broken, too many missteps have been made, and too much silence has turned anticipation into suspicion. What was once a gold standard for video game adaptations now stands as a cautionary tale. About risk, about backlash, and about what happens when a franchise stops listening to the people who made it great in the first place. So here we are, standing at the edge of a franchise that once felt untouchable. The Last of Us was supposed to be the gold standard. It wasn't just a story, it was an experience. A brutal, emotional masterpiece that redefined what games and shows could be. And now, that legacy is in limbo. The show's lead star is mired in controversy. The third installment is reportedly shelved, and the fandom that once celebrated every frame now fights over every headline. Bella Ramsey became the lightning rod, but the truth is, this collapse didn't happen overnight. It was a series of decisions, some bold, some blind, that slowly fractured the bond between the franchise and the people who loved it. Fans weren't just reacting to casting or storylines, they were reacting to the feeling that their voices no longer mattered. And maybe that's the biggest tragedy of all. Whether HBO decides to reboot with Caitlin Dever, whether they push forward with Bella Ramsey, or whether they abandon the series entirely, the damage has been done. The franchise that once united gamers and TV fans alike has become a battlefield of opinions, regret, and what-ifs. But in the world of The Last of Us, there's always been one constant: survival. Against the odds, against betrayal, against heartbreak. Maybe the series will rise again, maybe not. The only thing we know for sure, this isn't the ending anyone expected. And for a story built on pain, loss, and complicated choices, maybe that's the most fitting conclusion of all. But now, it's your turn. Do you think The Last of Us Part 3 is truly gone for good? Should HBO recast Ellie and give fans the reboot they've been begging for? Or has the controversy grown too massive to fix? Jump into the comments and let it rip, because if this franchise has taught us anything, it's that the story is never really over.